Hello, I'm David.
Hi, I'm Julie.
So now we're going to do a review of Robotech Brace for Impact. If you've been following our channel, you know we've done other Robotech games. So this is something that I'm a big fan of Robotech. I grew up with it. I like it as much as a Star Wars or Star Trek fan would. So there's 2 or 3 other games that we have in our collection that we haven't reviewed yet. But unfortunately, we can't do a how to play and playthrough for this because you're going to see in the review, it's not very much fun as a 2-player game, although you can play it as a 2-player game. I will go over the rules, overview of the 2-player version and the 3 to 15-player version. You can play this with up to 15 players.
That's a lot of people.
Right. So let's take a look here what you're trying to do. Now, it's a real-time strategy game, and it's got 3 different timers here. So you're going to set up the board like this. And here you're going to have an RDF side, and one player would be the Centrality. Okay, so I'm going to go over the 3 to 15 player version first, and then I'll talk about how it's a little different with 2 players. So you'll see that you have armor, which will be destroyed first before hull gets attacked, life support, or the reflex engine. Now, when you're setting up, you'll see that there's a setup chart.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. Yeah, but you got to understand how to read the chart.
Oh.
You could do training, veteran, or elite, and then you look here. I mean, the chart makes sense after you figure it out. The number of players, and it tells you that you start with 1 armor flipped over. That means it's been damaged. And then this is the part that people can miss. How many cards does the Centrality player draw? 5, and veteran 6, and elite 7. So why does this matter? Because when the Centrality hits the SDF1, this is what the SDF1 represents right here, you're going to flip over these tile. Armor will get hit first unless it's a direct hit. If hull is eliminated to 0, all these are destroyed, all of them are flipped over. The RDF, that's the Robotech Defense Force. If you don't know.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
is destroyed. Okay, so if all 7 of these are flipped over,
Yeah.
RDF loses.
Oh.
If the life support is destroyed, you draw less cards because this is a hand management game. So you don't lose if these all flip over. You just can't draw cards, and if you can't draw new cards, you'll lose. Now, the Reflex Engine, it's the power source. Julie has seen all the episodes a long time ago, but that's when we were first dating back in the 90s.
That was way long ago.
But she hasn't seen him since.
Nope.
So here is the reflex timer. If these get damaged, the RDF players have this much time, which is 60 seconds, to repair all 3. Okay?
That's stressful.
Right. Oh, you don't remember that in the game that did happen, and you guys did repair it.
Oh.
So we have played this as a 2 players and as a 4-player game. So, and the RDF will lose if they're surrounded by 8, and they don't have to be flipped over. I'll explain when you flip them over. But if there's 8 cards surrounding the SDF1, they'll lose as well. So how does the RDF win? Well, in the 3 to 15 player version, the game ends in 10 minutes. So it's actually very quick. This is the Grand Cannon timer, and it's 5 minutes. So you play for 5 minutes, and then this is the Centrality attack timer. Every 30 seconds this will go off. So basically the Centrality are going to get 10 attacks in 5 minutes. So the Centrality is going to get to act basically 20 times before the game ends, right? So when the reflex cannon timer goes off, just like in the TV show, they'll be able to destroy 1 ship of the Centrality. Now, there are better ships to destroy in the deck that are worth, like here's a 6. Okay, they're probably going to pick that one to be destroyed by the Grand Cannon, or this one, Miria. Wow, we didn't ever got that one. That's a pretty tough one. You'll probably take the reflex cannon to destroy that one. So anyway, the timer flips over once. Okay, you destroy a ship, the RDF does, and you flip it over again, and it will be over in 10 minutes. So either the Centrality win by surrounding the STF1, destroying all the hull, or destroying the reflex cannon. And the RDF wins by surviving or if they're able to do it quick enough, destroying all the Centrality ships. So what happens during the game? Well, 2 of these will be placed out and more will come into play. And you may wonder, why are they flipped over? Because when the RDF plays, you'll divide up the deck equally among the number of players. I forget how many cards are here, but if it's 4 players, there'll be 4 equal piles. And then each player will be able to flip up a card and call out an action. So like the TV show, they call them the Bridge Bunnies, okay? If you remember the cartoon, it gets very chaotic during battle and they're shouting orders over each other. So I have to give credit to the designer for capturing that part of the series where the bridge is all hectic and it gets hectic in the game. Now it could be a good or bad thing because it's real time and you got to go as fast as you can. So what happens is if someone says life support is failing on multiple decks. Now life support is the key word here. So because this is that key word here, somebody would have to have this card in their hand to say our engineers have life support coming back online. So if somebody calls that out, someone says in response, our engineers have life support coming back online. So that means then you can repair, and sometimes these icons can be hard to see, you'll repair 1 life support. So you go back to here, say a life support is damaged. Remember, this limits how many cards you can draw. You would repair 1 because that's what that card does. So you're basically matching cards as the RDF players. So when we played this with 4 players, Julie and our 2 sons were the RDF, and they were listening to each other and matching cards.
We played this with just David, too.
Yeah, we did. We played it with 3 players, but we played with 4 because we wanted to see that. So you got cards that repair. You got cards that attack. We have available monster destroyers that can attack, and it would do a 4 attack. But when somebody shouts it out, see, they either picked one of the 2 on top. Someone on the with a card on the bottom has to respond. You are authorized to proceed with your attack. So say Julie reads this, and our son Ed reads this, and so they have a pair. And so now you go to the board. Again, this is why it's kind of chaotic. Let's say you have 2 cards out here. They would have to pick which one they're going to attack. And it could be something that's already face up. Okay, let's say they could pick that fighter that's already face up. Let's say they want to pick this one here. And that 3 to 5 means it could be a power of 3, 4, 5. So they flip it up. They know they're going to do at least 4. So they know they destroy it because the destroyed, the monster destroyer does 4 damage. Okay, but let's say it was a ship that was more powerful. Let's say it was a 6. So they picked this cruiser because you're going to do 4 attack. You're automatically going to destroy this 3. Let's say they flip this up, 6 plus, they flip it up. They are doing 4 damage, they spin it, 4 plus 3 is 7, it's destroyed. So that's what the RDF are going to do. They're going to be calling out commands on the, emergency calls on the top, picking either this one or this one, and then trying to do a match. And if they don't get a match, they can save the card for later. So part of the game then is matching, I gotta find it here, scouts. This is why you see different sides here. You see an all draw and a, where is it? And a repair, okay? So if you call out a launch scout, let me see, where is a scout here? I'm trying to get, okay. We have scouts investigating areas hidden in the debris. And then somebody would say, command, launch scouts. So now you can flip over one of these cards. Now, if we need more cards, you draw as many cards as the life support, you'd flip it over. So everybody would draw 3 cards, you'd flip it over and you get to see what it is. Or you can repair something because you flip that over with the scout because of the repair action here on the card. And now you repair something. So scouting allows you to see what's there and you can repair things and draw more cards. Now, why is it called Brace for Impact? Because this was kind of, the rules you'll see in my review don't provide a lot of examples, so this can be difficult to figure out. anybody on the RDF team can shout brace for impact. All hands brace for impact. So that means then the Centrality player, which I'll explain in a minute what the Centrality player does, gets to do an action, but then we get to draw. You get to draw cards. So when you've run out of cards or your cards aren't matching, you say all hands brace for impact. You draw as many cards as the life support. The Centrality player does an attack, and then you add more cards to your hand. Because what you have here is you have your personal deck, and you have so many cards that you're revealing cards and trying to get matches. And at some point, you're going to have cards that you can't match to another player, or you don't have the right cards, and you call out all hands brace for impact. You draw cards, but then the Centrality player gets an attack. So that's why it's called all hands brace for impact. So now what does the Centrality player do? Let's go to this camera. So as the RDF players are trying to ward off the attacks, by the way, for 5 or more players, you add this many more cards to the deck. Okay, so that's not played with. So, as I mentioned, this is divided up evenly. Now, the Centrality player, you start out with 2 on the STF, but the Centrality player, as you saw here in the chart, is going to have so many cards, 5 cards. You always have 5 cards after a card's used, but the Centrality player will start with 5, and then you'll have 1 event card face up. Okay, so when the timer runs down for 30 seconds, the Centrality timer, the Centrality player needs to decide, do I do the event and add 2 more cards from my deck, or do an attack? So let's say if I choose this event, there's already 2 out here in the beginning of the game. I can add 2 more cards and try to overwhelm. Wow, look at that. So maybe I'll add these 2, okay, like this. I'm adding 2 cards. That's what I did in that 30-second timer. Let's say the timer, and then I draw up to 5 again. Now let's say the Centrality timer runs down again. I'm not gonna do this event. The next event is always face up. The Centrality player has to decide whether or not to use it or discard it. If they discard it, then they do an attack. So then they spin, and it would be this one, -1 life support gets hit. But let's say it was pointing here, this would flip up, and now Chiron does a 2, well, by the way, notice I said life support -1, the armor would get hit first. Armor is always destroyed first. And you can lose all your armor. The RDF can lose all their armor, and the game doesn't end for them. But you can repair armor, and it then takes hits before the other systems, unless there's a direct hit. So for instance, right here, Chiron, if I would have, this was not flipped up, and the spinner lands here, Chiron flips up, and look what he does. He does 2 to the Reflex Engine, and 2 to the hull, and 2 to the Reflex Engine. Very powerful attack. And then he'll be flipped up now, and the RDF will know he's there, and then maybe when the Reflex Cannon comes back around again, they can target him. Or the RDF player can do something called all hands concentrate firepower. So this is how the RDF player can take out something that's that big. If a player announces that, they can play cards that have attack value. This 3, a 5, okay, and that 3. Well, let's say this card right here. They play these 3 cards of the players. They decide to combine their cards together. That's 3 plus 2 plus 5. That's 10. Now these cards will be taken out of the game permanently, and Chiron can be destroyed. So that might be something you might have to do. All hands concentrate firepower. You'll lose cards from the deck, because again, you recycle these as the RDF player plays them, draws them, and then when they have played all their cards, they shuffle their discard pile to draw new ones. All right, the only other 2 things to go over, your optional rules here. You can play with enemy tactics, so that means that when the Centrality player has an event card here, when a Centrality player has drawing enemy ships into their hand, they can decide to draw an enemy tactic card into their hand, kind of like Battle Line. So they can add this to their hand, and so they can play with a combination of tactic cards and ship cards and play them out of their hand when you get one of these. So you can play an enemy tactics card instead of a ship card. And then you can play with this option roll to have enemy commanders like Azonia, Bretai, other ones. So anyway, what's the difference in the two-player game? Okay, this is why you're going to find out in a review. The two-player game is not much fun because, well, let me just show you why.
Not at all.
Okay. In the two-player game, there's no timer. The game can go on more than 10 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. You still play with the Centrality. Every 30 seconds, the game stops, so it's less chaotic. And then you have to decide for the Centrality, the ghost Centrality player, how many cards to add. And then the Centrality player attacks. It just seems, and with two players, what happens is, Julie has her cards, we're calling off things to each other. It just seems to go really slow. Mm-hmm. And you still play with the reflex cannon. I'm not sorry, the reflex cannon, the reflex furnace. Mm. The reflex furnace. I think I've been saying that wrong the whole time. The reflex furnace, you still play with that, and we still have to worry about that. So there's no Centrality player in the two-player game. You add ships to the STF1 here if you get overpowered, or again, if the hull is destroyed, or the reflex furnace is destroyed, or if you can't draw cards that help you, your deck runs out, you lose the game. It's what makes the 3 to 15 player game better is that it will end in 10 minutes. And it just seems to plod. Like when we were playing, it seems like this 30-second timer kept on running out all the time really fast.
Yeah.
And the game tended to take too long.
Yeah,
because
not fun.
The action kept on stopping for us as a two-player. Okay, now we do this Centrality action. Yeah. And then now we're going to flip the timer. And then we still got our cards we got to deal with. Whereas when you play with 3 to 15 players, if the Centrality player deals with all the Centrality actions, and you're just dealing with RDF actions. But when you're playing two players, you got to worry about both. It seems to, yes, it's a slower game, but it's not a good thing in this case. All right, so why did I go through all that? Because the rulebook is not easy to use. So let's go over our...
it was almost like a how to play.
Yes, it was. But I wanted to do that because there's not a lot of videos on this game.
Oh, no, I'm not complaining. I just thought that was really interesting that you made it into like a how to play.
Right.
All right. This game does play really fast with 3, even 4 players, which is good because you can get it over with in 10 minutes. And yes, I said that, get it over with. I did think the art was kind of cool. It was interesting. Being not a big Robotech person, it was like, all right, whatever. I think it's very crazy. As David said, it's chaotic. And I don't like games that are just, people are yelling left and right and you're trying to listen to everything and you're getting confused. And at one point I just kind of sat back and, let my boys, do it all. Or when it was just David Jr. and David and I, it was a little bit easier. But when it was all 4 of us, it was just too wild.
It would be interesting how would you play with
I wouldn't play.
A lot of players?
I wouldn't play. And like David said, it's not much fun as a 2-player game. In fact, when we got done playing it, I was like, please don't make me ever play this game again. I just don't want to. But I did. I played it with David Jr. and then I played it with our 2 boys together. And I still don't want to play this game again.
You gave it a lot of chances.
I did, and I'm done.
And you're not a big Robotech fan, so
No.
I'll go into my review now.
I know like Minmay and Rick. That's it. Those are the only 2 people I know. And I don't even know what Rick does, but I know his name's Rick.
Well, you just haven't seen it in a long time. It's been probably 20 years. It's been over 20 years since you've seen it.
Oh, okay.
So I don't blame you for not remembering.
All right. Well, good. Thank you.
So it is faithful gameplay and art. They did it. You can tell the people who put this together are fans of the show. It shows. It's nice renderings here. It's original renderings. It's not, taking screenshots. Miria looks like Miria. It's well done, the art. So I have to give them kudos
I
for
said
that.
it was cool art. I don't know who everybody is, but it was cool art.
So it's an interesting take on call, response, real-time strategy game, but 2 chaotic. So I said the same thing that you did.
It's crazy.
I really wonder if non-Robotech fans would like this.
No.
And you'll see my rating here. Only our son Eddie would play this again.
Yep.
David probably wouldn't.
And I wouldn't either.
Even though he likes anime and he likes Robotech, but Eddie's a bigger fan.
Eddie's a much bigger fan of Robotech than David. Definitely.
I think the bigger fan you are, the more likely you are to want to play
Probably.
this. Okay.
Yeah.
So it plays quick in 3+ player mode. I should say 10 minutes, not 2 minutes.
Oh.
Okay. So it should say 10 minutes there. Another error.
That's okay.
Includes optional rules, so that's nice. Like I said, it has the enemy commanders that you can add to it, and tactics cards. Like in Battle Line, you can draw these, as I mentioned, instead of the ship cards into your Centrality hand. Okay.
Okay.
So that's a good thing that it has options. I just like the 2-player mode. It just seems plodding. It's just slow.
It's very slow.
And so it's supposed to be like simulate what happens in the show where you're getting attacked and you're having to manage all this stuff.
Okay.
Okay. With the 2-player mode, it doesn't simulate that. Okay. The rulebook is bad. All right. It's annoying.
Well, I don't read the rule books, so that's
it. Took way more time than it needed to figure out because it lacks examples. And then it does, and they do this with the other Robotech games. It has a background that's hard to read. Now on camera, you can see it a little bit better, but it doesn't contrast enough. So right away with my old eyes, I'm trying. It's forcing me to concentrate more.
Oh yeah.
And then when there's a lack of examples,
that makes it worse.
And then there was some contradictions on what was referring to things, like whether or not they were tokens or. So I had a hard time figuring out, are they referring to the tokens or referring to this? So like I said, when the timer flips to this, there's no ship there. Life support goes down 1 and armor goes down 1. And but it had a hard time referring to using consistent terms, which also made it harder as well.
Oh, sure.
So it was more difficult to figure out how to play than necessary. It's a very simple game, but the lack of examples made it more difficult. It's at the annoying level, which means someone who's experienced can get through it.
Yeah.
People who are not experienced will probably give up.
Oh, I would have.
You wouldn't be able to. You can read rule books that are well written. You would not be able to be successful at this rule book.
Let's see what we rated it on the BGG.
All right, so let's take a look at how we rated it. All right, so I said a 6 because I'm a super fan. I will play it in the mood, and if it's at the right people, this can be a lot of fun. All right.
And I obviously said mediocre because, believe it or not, I will leave it. I won't take it. I will just probably leave it. But, if David and we had friends over and they really wanted to play it and they needed me to play, I would play, but most likely I would just sit there and just kind of listen to things and be like, oh yeah, okay, there's that thing.
Yeah, you do the matching.
Because otherwise it is just so much for me to comprehend when it's just everyone's yelling at you and it's all coming at you at once to try and understand what's being said, and you're trying to match things. And you have a timer, and it's like all the things that I really have a hard time with in games is all coming at me at once. It's just not fun. Yeah. I'd rather, be in the kitchen making, hot tea for everybody.
So if you're a super fan, I'd recommend this game. If you can find the right number of players, at least 3 players, who are super fans to play this with.
It has to. I think super fans is the key word right there.
Casual fans like you don't mind watching Robotech. You enjoyed it, but you're not into it enough to go, hey, it's put on Robotech. Whereas me, I'd put it on. So it does simulate what happened on the bridge in the show, but that's also to its detriment because it could be too chaotic for some.
Yes, very chaotic.
Anyway, it's interesting. There's some positives here. The art.
Yeah, the art
simulates what happens in the show. And if you're into real-time games where people are going to be shouting over each other, trying to hear things, I think it's fun to play the Centrality player because you just sit back and you're just laying down cards and you're attacking and you're watching the RDF trying to scramble to survive. That's fun.
Okay.
But again, it only takes 10 minutes, so that's a positive. But
it's the longest 10 minutes of my life. I'm telling you that right now.
You're not the target audience.
I am not the target audience. No.
Anyway, so that's our review.
Yes.
I don't know. It could be hard to find this. So, but I bet you there's some used copies if it's not available new.
Okay.
Because there's probably some people that bought it and don't want it.
Probably.
So if you think this is
Sure.
up your alley, you'd probably find it at a reasonable price.
I'm sure you could.
Right. Anyway, thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.